Hi, in my earlier videos I did a tutorial on writing an audio plugin host application in C++. This time I'm going to talk about the other side of the story, namely the plugins themselves. How you would go about writing a plugin, in particular an FX plugin that alters the incoming audio signal in one way or another. The best method I know of has been developed and made public by someone called Will Perkle. I wholeheartedly recommend his book. It is a perfect mix of gentle introduction to DSP theory and hands-on applications of that theory in the form of various audio FX plugin programs. He has also written an API and software development tools which are freely available to download from his website. In fact, what I'm going to do in this video is to walk you through the creation of a simple audio plugin using his software and development method. By the end of it, you will have everything you need to write your own audio FX plugins to be deployed and used in a digital audio workstation. Now, obviously, this is an entry-level introduction, and it is mainly for those who have written programs in C++ but have not yet tackled the development of a plugin, or have already tried to write one but did not have much success with it. The plugin will be designed and built with a prototyping tool called RecAFX. This application can be downloaded from Will Perkle's website here. When the prototype is finished, built and tested, we will convert it to a production version and load it up into a DAW such as Reaper or Cubase. Okay, so the first thing to do is to download the necessary software and create our development environment. If you've been curious and have read up on some of the documentation on Will Perkle's website, you would have seen that he has instructions on how to compile the same plugin program for any of the three most popular platforms, Windows, Mac, and Linux. However, because I am a Windows user, in this video I will be building a VST plugin under Windows. I assume you have Visual Studio with C++ already installed. We will also need CMake, so if you don't have it yet, download it from here. Then, going back to Will's webpage, you can see that this is the most recent version of RecAFX, so download that too. Also download the matching Steinberg VST SDK, or one of the others if you are on a different platform. This VST SDK is not the latest, but for now this is the one we want to use with RecAFX. Here I've got my downloads on the D drive. When you unzip the RecAFX zip file, you see a Windows installation program there, so run it to install RecAFX. It will let you choose an installation directory, but be aware that it also creates some folders in the AppData roaming location for user files. More on this later, because there is a caveat. In the VST SDK, I'm going to ignore the Mac OS branch and just concentrate on the VST branch. The most important files are in this VST3 SDK folder here. The VST3 documentation, as opposed to the earlier VST2 documentation, is better, with some room for improvement. Some of these links will want to take you to the Steinberg website, so you'd have to be connected to the internet. Importantly, there are some simple plugins here, and we are going to build them. So, to be clear, this is only the source code for the samples. That's why we will have to build them. To do this is good for two reasons. One is to make sure our installation is correct and working, and we can also examine and learn from the samples. To build everything, the script in the CMake lists text file has to be run. Now, my personal opinion is that CMake is a horrible, An awful system. It is gigantic and complicated and never works without some tweaking. And if something goes wrong, as it will, then it is very hard to fix it. Anyway, end of rant. We are stuck with it. There are a few ways this script can be executed. The simplest is to right-click on the VST3 SDK folder and select Open with Visual Studio. Unfortunately, there is a problem. The default generator will be run, which is Ninja, and lots of errors will be produced. We want to run the Visual Studio generator. So this is what I suggest. Open Visual Studio and in Debug, Options, CMake, set the JSON template directory to be VST3 SDK and select Never Run Configure step automatically. Then select File, Open the CMake lists text file. This will generate a CMake settings JSON file. Open that file by going to Project, CMake Settings. After editing it, it should look like something like this. I have Visual Studio 2019 as the generator. If you have Visual Studio 2020, then this is the text you need. I also specified the Windows SDK version, but you might not have to do that. This last entry is important. What it does is it prevents symbolic links to be created in the Common Files folder, which is a protected folder in Windows, and the script fails because access is denied. Press Save, and then choose Project, Generate Cache. I'm not going to run it now because I've done it before. Just for the record, the third way of executing the script is from a command window. You are supposed to create an out build directory under VST3 SDK, change to that directory, and run this command. After the script has been successfully executed, you will have these files in the x64 debug folder. We are not done yet though. Now open this solution in Visual Studio. Here you can build all samples all at once or individually. It did not work for me without problems. Maybe you'll be luckier. The error I encountered was to do with the post-build event here. You can either turn it off or edit the script where it fails. Well, good luck with it. The sample plugins will be in the VST3 debug folder. Let's look at some of them. So here I am in Cubase, and I'm going to load a plugin. Let's say this one. Now, this plugin doesn't have a custom build GUI. The DAW provides a generic editor window. This plugin does have a custom-built user interface. It works, but unfortunately, you won't hear any sound because the screen recorder I am using doesn't capture the sound if it is channeled through ASIO. And as you can see, there aren't any other choices. Both Cubase and ASIO are products of Steinberg, so I guess it makes sense for them to want us to use ASIO in Cubase. Now I'm in Reaper, and I'll load the same two plugins. Okay, let's test them. Just as a side note, the reason we can now hear sound is that in Preferences, I have the option to set the audio device not only to ASIO, but also to the Windows audio source, and my crappy screen recorder works well with that. The hosting examples ended up in the bin debug folder. For instance, to use this editor host, issue this command in the command window. Well, it is now time to turn our attention to the main topic of this video, namely to create an audio plugin the Will Perkle way. Will has a series of videos on his YouTube channel where he shows how to do it. Here I am just giving you a roadmap kind of thing, pointers to other material and some additional information where I think it will be useful. The plugin prototype will be created and tested in Rec FX. Will has a video on describing this interface, so I'm not going to spend time on that. However, there is something I want to bring to your attention, and that is the Preferences item in the View menu. Here are the target locations of some user-specific files. When you install Rec FX in Windows, these folders are created in the AppData Roaming folder. You can move these folders to a different location, but there is also this file that contains program configuration or preferences data, and this file cannot be relocated because the program always looks for it here. I should also mention that there will be an entry in the Windows registry under Triton or Triton systems. What I am going to do now is to show you the end results of each of Will's tutorial videos, and after that I will go through some important additional steps or tasks. So here is his YouTube channel, and the videos to watch are these. But do that only after you watched my video to the end, so that you get an idea of the entire process from the beginning to the finished product, where we will have a working plugin in a DAW. The plugin is going to be a glorified volume control. A simple plugin, but advantageously, it uses pretty much all the control types on the UI. First, we will have just a knob that controls the volume. In the second tutorial, a mute switch and VU meters are added. I now jump ahead to the end of the tutorial with all the controls in place, including a channel selection drop-down list and a volume preset selection drop-down control, which will indirectly manipulate the volume control knob. While it is playing, I briefly switch to the code. When you write your plugin, almost all of your code will be in these two files. That makes life very easy. So far so good. We now have a working prototype. This is a simple plugin, but with more advanced FX plugins, you'd probably want to do some experimenting and testing, and Rec FX has some tools for that. I only had a brief look at this so-called big analyzer, so I'm not going to be able to explain how to use it and interpret the results. Well, that is left to you to investigate. The next thing we want to do is to design and build a nice looking GUI for it. The plugin already has a blank editor window, and by shift right-clicking, you can access the GUI designer. This here is the Steinberg VST designer, but instead of this, we will use the Rec FX designer. Funny thing is, after I loaded an inbuilt FX plugin, with which I demonstrated the analyzer, I now have to reload the volume control project to be able to switch to the GUI designer tab. Will has a video on how to use this designer, so I just show you what I came up with. Now we have to rebuild the project. And by the way, this is the file that contains everything that is on the user interface, including the bitmap data. And here are our controls. The build has finished. According to Will's video, now we should be able to bring up the new editor window, but for me it didn't work. Not sure why, but not to worry, because this is just a minor inconvenience. We should now press on and build the production version of the volume control plugin. That means exporting to ASPIK. With that, all the rack EFX code will be stripped and only the plugin-specific code will remain. There are some fields to be filled in on this form, and I will choose only to build for VST. Porting has been done and the files are in this location. We now have a new CMake lists script to execute. However, first, some modifications are in order. Just checking that these flags are set correctly. I am building with the VST SDK only, so the others are set to false. Further down, look for the SDK roots section, and down here, we need to set the SDK root to the VST3 SDK directory. Lastly, scroll down a few more lines, and here is where the VST GUI root is set. Make sure it points to the folder which contains a copy of VST GUI. For me, it is in the RecEFX project folder. CMake has to be run in the win_build folder. So, with my command window, I changed to that directory, and I'm going to execute this command. I press enter, and let's see what happens. The build succeeded, and we have these new files in the win_build directory, including a Visual Studio solution file. Open the solution in Visual Studio. Here it is, and now build it. This is going to take a long time because tests are also being performed on the plugin, which is a good thing. Why am I not surprised that we got an error? By the look of it, it's again to do with a post-build event. So let's take a look. Now, a simple solution would be to exclude it from the build by setting this value to no. But I think it is better to find the offending lines and fix them. As I suspected, the problem is again caused by these symbolic links, so I just simply delete these lines because I don't need symbolic links. Build again. And this time it succeeded. No errors. Right. Now we should have a working volume plugin we can use in a plugin host. Here is the VST3 plugin. I'm going to copy it to my Common Files VST3 folder and then test it with 3 digital audio workstations, Cakewalk, Cubase, and Reaper. Stick around to see it, or if you are now all too eager to go and start coding your own plugin, then have fun, and good luck.